so received a request to basically show creating a track from scratch on the Hermod Plus. So we're going to go ahead and do that today. Not going to go into everything that the Hermod Plus can do. I think, like I said in my last video, there's a lot of kind of overlap from what the old Hermod could do. A lot of that's still in there. I just feel that it's a very updated, very fresh, very clean, easier way to interact with the Hermod Plus. Going to go ahead and start first with the baseline. So up here you got your top buttons that take you into the various things that you want to work with. In sequence mode, each one of these will trigger a different sequence for you. I believe you can set up when it changes. Is it based on syncing on one bar or whatever that may be, and then it'll change over. You got your tracks here under track, and so this is where with the first 8 you can mute, unmute the tracks, and depending on what's going on, whether it's a note, whether it's modulation or whatever that may be. If you want to pick a different track to work with, this is where you pick the track buttons here on this side. And I think I showed this in my last video. If you wanted to change specific things about that track, you just basically hold that down and then you get into additional menus here. Then put CV, but I'm not going to get into that now. So we're just going to go back here. Your effects, this is where you add your effects. So for this one, you basically can push the button, you can pick your ARP, your chance, delay, envelope, etc. Most of these effects were on the Hermod. I think these two might be new. It's called 2-note and 2cc. I tried to play around with these a little bit, but really couldn't get anything going with those. But basically, you pick an effect, you then can get in, edit the parameters of it. You basically just push the toggle button in and you can edit there, and then push it to go back. And then most of them, if you scroll to the bottom, you go right back here. You push it in, it'll take you back into the edit mode for that effect. However, if you want to remove it, you just push and hold. Push and hold gets you into the effects contact menu. You can get back into edit here, you can copy it, delete it, and that's what we want to do. We want to delete it. In here, I'm going to do this just to kind of show how it works with the tracks. So if you've got like a couple different effects in here, you got a scale and whatnot, cool. You can mute the effects, same as back on the track page, you can mute and unmute the tracks. So you can mute these, which is nice. The other thing that's nice with the Hermod Plus that wasn't part of the Hermod, the first slot was always the MIDI. So that's where you basically could pass MIDI through to the various channels. It looks like what the Hermod Plus did was remove the need to use that slot for the MIDI. So you now have 8 full slots that you can use. So we're going to delete that, hold that down and delete that. Cool. And then your steps. So depending on which track you're on, this is where you can basically go in and start adding notes. Basic step sequencer. So these notes will be added based on the parameters that are shown here. So I'm going to change the first note that it's going to add. Oops, I want to go down. We're going to go to C4. And so I'm going to hit C4, start bringing in some notes. All right, something along those lines I like. The other thing I want to do here is I am going to go ahead and add a scales. Maybe in scale anyways, but I want to work in C minor pentatonic. So I just want to make sure as we're changing anything that it's going to stay locked to that. One cool thing on the scale effect, you can transpose it. Now this one isn't changing with every transpose because it's got the scale effect on it. But I'm not going to use that today. I'm not sure quite how to use that in like a playing live kind of situation, but I may mess around with that more. I think you can use track 16 in to transpose, but I haven't played around with that too much. All right, so we're going to go back. So we got our scale. Let's go back to steps. Give us a little bit of variation here. Cool, I like that. I think I want this last one a little lower. Yep, I like that. And then let's go a little higher on this one. cool. I like that. So something basic there. This is basically the CV going out to the supercritical demon core oscillator, running a saw, little bit of a detune on that or core stability change, and a little bit of spread on the voices. I think I'm actually up at 16 voices. Envelope is a pip slope. So basically set to the trigger input, but I can obviously turn up the decay and get some pretty cool effects there. I've also got it running through a ripples. As this is going to be our bass sound, I find that the ripples does a really good job giving you that nice bassy resonance at the cutoff point, especially you throw a little bit of an envelope in there, get something like that going. So I think that sounds pretty cool. So if we go back to track and we want to mute that, we can mute that, right? Bring that back in. If we want to bring in a little bit of, say, some of the drums. Got a cool little groove going. So, all right, so let's go ahead and mute that. Now let's get something that's somewhat generative, or I guess unpredictable, but still locked within a scale. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick track 2 for this. And for this one, what I want to do is I want to generate the pattern in the step mode. So I'll show you guys how to do that. And then I'll also show you if you want something that's a little more generative. So when you come to step mode, you can push the Y button and hold it, which will let you change the length. So this is basically 16 steps, and I think that is basically a 16th note. You can go out to 32, go out to 48, you can go all the way out to 256. So if I were to go back to 16, going to go ahead and push this encoder. This takes you into the pattern editor. So here you can edit some of the generation or generator parameters. You can pick on how it's going to quantize it. Is on the 16th. You can change that to the 8th, 12th, various things there, right? Density, I believe this is how full the pattern will be. So I am going to turn that up a little bit. So if you want it really sparse, you could do density max at like 50 and density min at like 10. It'd be super sparse. Or you could do 100 and 100, and at that point I believe it would just be completely full. Note min and max, we are going to lower this a little bit. We're going to go down to C5 and then C7, just in my mind kind of what I want to hit. Length minimum would be 1/4 note, and the length max is basically 1 whole note. So this gives you some variability in what's being played there. And then you got your velocity, and then you can go back. That did not generate anything. So I now need to go into generator, and then I hit randomize step plus Y. And so now it generated a pattern for us. Doesn't sound very musical, especially if we go back to the bass line. It's not in key, right? So we got our generated pattern. We're going to go to effects. To keep us within the scale, surprise, we'll run the scale. So basically going to go into effects, going to go down here to the right, going to add a scale effect. Same thing, going to go minor, going to go pentatonic, C, and if I wanted, transpose would work as well, but we're not going to do that. So we got our scale effect now, and hopefully sounds like it's in key or in pitch. I'm not really a fan of what that pattern's doing though. So what I can do is go back here and basically generate another one. Not a fan. All right, I think part of it is honestly the density. So we're going to go to generator settings, reduce our density down. Go back. Now you'd have to regenerate. It's not going to apply to the generated pattern. So got something going there. The the pattern there, or the generated sequence, track 2. So that's running through the plots, and that's on the wavetable oscillator on the green bank. No effects going on right now, so I can move the harmonizer, I can move the morph, etc., which we will get that going here in a minute. To give it some interest, it is going through a Violina from Noise Engineering for a filter, just to give us some control, and then eventually we'll run it through some effects as well. So there's our sequence. Going to go ahead and mute that as well. So we basically got a cool little bass line going. Add in the kick, and then all in. So, got a basic little sequence going. Like I said, we'll add some effects. If I wanted to, on this guy, we could also go here and add a glide. So if we basically go back here and go to the glide, like I said in my previous video, this isn't going to do much if you leave it set to when the notes overlap. So this would be something if you program in some notes that overlap and you want to have that create a slide for you, that's where that would work. We want it to just basically happen always. So I liked it at about 20. And then the nice thing again here, I could just mute that. So not bad, got something going. What I am gonna do just to kind of make this a little bit more generative and show you guys how to do that. So again, if I go to 2, I am gonna save this sequence. So to do that, you go over to sequence, you push the button, project save, load. You basically go here, I'm gonna do save as, I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna name it C. So that way, if these next few changes break something from what I like, I can get back to a point that I was like, yeah, I was happy there. So we're gonna make sure that we're on track 2, which we are. We're gonna go ahead and hit the length, and we're gonna go out to 256. Now you're gonna hear silence until I generate the pattern again. So I'm gonna go generator. So now we've got 256 beats of randomness. The other thing I could do if I really wanted, so instead of messing with the density, I could go here and I could go with a chance. So if I grab the chance, so I could reduce it this way as well by using the chance. I'm gonna bring that up a little bit. Let's go 67. Cool. So now if I mute that, and not the most musical idea in the world, but hopefully you guys are getting a sense of how to use this. So what we want to do now is on the plots, I want to go ahead and introduce some modulation. So in order to do that, I'm going to select a track, and then I am going to go into select the track and then push down. And so now I'm going to pick the track layout. So if you're in track mode, you select which track, and then you push the encoder. Now you're in track layout. So this is where you can copy the track, you can clear the track, you can go to layout. So here you can do a voice of modulation, you can do voice mono with gate and velocity, 2 voices, 3 voices, and starting to get into polyphony. We are going to do 1 voice modulation. So that's going to turn that to modulation. So a couple things we could do here. We could go to effects, so let's unmute that. We could go to effects now, make sure we're on track 3. You can add an LFO. So basically assign LFO. And then let's see where that is going. All right. All right, so that should be affecting the harmonics. Let's go back to effects. And let's edit that. Back. Okay, cool. So we got that going. That's not adding too much change. There we go. And that one's actually going to morph. I apologize, that's not going to harmonics. So you can hear that affecting that. So that's one way we can do that with nothing on. So what we're gonna do though is we're gonna delete that. We're gonna go to steps, okay? And so because this is a mod track, you can also generate here, randomize mod. So now what that's going to do is create random modulations. And then same thing, so I don't think we talked about this back on the steps. So if you're here and you want to edit one of these steps, that's probably not a good one. We'll go to the baseline. So just, I know we're jumping all over here, but if you go to the baseline and you want to change a specific note, you just hold that note. And when you hold that step down, you can edit the highlighted item. If you want to change, you just push down. You can shorten the note. You can lengthen it. And then you can also change the velocity. So that's how you take care of that. We're going to go to that. And then same thing here. You saw earlier we did the length, right, with the track 2. You can also change the zoom. So how tight in you can see things. So it helps with like kind of fine grain editing, etc. But back to track 2, unmute that. We're going to go to our mod step. In the same way that we did this with the notes, you can grab an item and it'll highlight where it is and say, you know, I don't like that being that high. And just hold it, and then you can change it. Same thing here, you can pull that down, and then you can push, it won't let you push actually. So you can change the modulation there. Not a big fan of that, so I'm gonna generate that again. All right, not a fan of that. So what we're gonna do, mod value max, we're gonna tweak that, pull that back a little bit, go to 101, mod value min, 21. Let's do that. Now we're gonna go back. All right, so we got something going there, right? What we're going to do now, track 4, we're also going to change over to a mod to give some randomness to the harmonics. So how we're going to do that is we're going to go to track 4, make sure that that's highlighted. We're going to go back to the track. We're going to push our button or encoder. We're going to pick one voice on modulation. We're going to go to effects and we're going to add an LFO. We want to do random. And then we want our sync rate. We're going to go on a quarter note. Yep, I can hear effect in it already. The cool thing here is I can control the range. So I don't need an external attenuator to be able to control the range. I can do it from here. Let's go at about 67 with that. Got a cool little thing going there. The drastic change in timbre is coming from the laser switch on the violino. So we got that going. So we got 2 tracks here, bass on 1, muted right now, mute, unmute, bass 2, or sorry, track 2, got a little bit of a sequence, and then a couple things of mod here. All right, so we've got a basic track going with the bass line, we've got some drums, we've got a sequence here, somewhat generative. And now what I want to do is bring those back in, bring some effects in with those. So first thing I want to do is on this sequence from the Plats, I think I'm going to bring in some of the Z5000 reverb by Tip Top Audio. Great reverb module, lots of presets or reverb types, I guess, with lots of control. So we're going to bring that in. Already is opening that up a lot. Now we're going to mute that, bring the bass in. This one I'm going to run through the Z5000. That's another Tip Top Audio effects unit. That one has effects, delays, and reverbs. Love the reverbs and effects. Delays sound really good, but there is no clock input. So you basically are syncing it by hand. Can be difficult and frustrating at times, but when you get it synced in, it does sound pretty good. So throw a little of that on our bass. Bring drums in. So, basic little sequence going on the Hermod. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I'm going to jam out here a little bit, and we'll catch you guys later. Thanks.